Hi, everybody. In this episode, I actually messed everything up. So we're taking a step back. And I wanted to talk about, just for half a second here, what the importance of learning from mistakes. And you want to avoid mistakes when you can, but if you do make them, and we all do, learning from them. So this episode was supposed to be about how to use an expander to reduce preamp noise in your audio recordings. Now, what that means, that's kind of techie talk. What I mean by that is sometimes when you make a recording, there's a little bit of hiss, especially if your talent stops talking for just a second or you stop talking, there's some hiss. And what that noise is it's preamplifier noise. It's your preamplifier for your microphone is making some self noise. And it can be pretty annoying. And using an expander, it's an audio plugin or software, or it can actually be hardware, but we're just going to use software here, that actually can take that hiss and actually reduce that while not affecting anything else in your recording. So that's what we were going to try to do. What I learned from this is a couple of things. Number one, first of all, I should have modified my attack settings. So as we're talking about the settings in RODERec, the audio recording app, keep in mind, you probably need to reduce the attack time to about 2 milliseconds if you can. And, but more importantly than that, what I learned is those built-in effects in RODERec and anything else that you can use built-in, as you're recording, unless you've really got a lot of experience with audio, I'm thinking that you're probably best off not using them. Just turn them off and do whatever processing you're going to do in post-production if you're going to do any. And the reason I say that is if you don't nail it right on, you've got to reshoot. You've got to do a retake. So I ran out of time, and I don't really have time to do retakes of this episode. But if I'm going to go ahead and play it for you, but what I want you to watch for, listen for, is in the clip. So there'll be the introduction, the title, and then a clip where I explain what we're doing. In that clip, listen to my voice and see if you can spot the issues. Because I didn't set the attack time quickly enough, what happened was the expander actually ended up reducing some of my dialogue. And so things get a little weird and choppy at points. And the way to fix that, again, as I mentioned before, is to reduce the attack time. So the attack time is how quickly the expander reacts to your voice. And if you reduce that time, it'll react faster and it won't do as much of the cutting off that you'll hear here. So here's a lesson for me to learn. I'm still very much learning. I appreciate your patience with me as we learn together. And if you've got any questions at the end, go ahead and drop those in the comments below. Thanks. We'll talk to you later. Now, I've taken a look at the Rode smartLav lavalier mic in the past, and it's a great mic, except that you may have noticed in the quiet portions of your dialogue, when no one's talking, there is a hissing noise, and it's kind of annoying. So let's look at a really quick and easy way you can take care of that. Check this out. Now with the Rode smartLav, that hiss noise that you're sounding is actually noise generated by the preamplifier in whatever device it is that you're recording with. Now in my case, I'm recording with an iPhone 5S. I think the experience is pretty much the same regardless of which type of phone you're using. But it's really it comes down to the fact that it has a consumer-grade preamplifier in it. And it's not a deal breaker. The audio sounds pretty good, but that hiss can be pretty annoying. So the way you can take care of that is by using something called an expander. And an expander is something that is available in the RODERec app, but if you don't have that, don't worry. You can also do it in an audio editing application after you've done the recording. So the way that an expander works is you set a threshold, and then you tell it any sound underneath that threshold, you want to make it quieter. So what we're going to do is identify where your noise floor is from the preamplifier, where that hiss is coming up to. We'll set a threshold just above that and tell it to gently decrease the sound below that level, and that'll take care of the hiss for the most part. So again, don't worry if you don't have the RODERec app. That's just a really easy way to do it. You can also do this in things like Audacity, Audition, Reaper, whatever application you're using for editing your audio. So check this out. Now, if you're using the RODERec app or a similar app on the Android platform, you can use what's called an expander to eliminate some of this noise in the quiet sections. That is the sections in dialogue between the words. So here I have a recording, and let's just highlight this section right here in between some of the words just to get a read on how much noise our preamp is making. Now, you may or may not be able to hear this depending on your speaker system, but let's just run through this really quickly. And what we're going to do is while we're running through that, I want to see how that registers on our level meter here. And I want to see how loud the noise actually gets, because that's going to be helpful for us in determining what to set our expander at to eliminate some of that noise. So let's watch. Okay, as it's running through here, you can see it's staying below minus 36 for sure. And as we run through the whole thing, yep, looks like for the whole thing it stays below minus 36. So we'll use minus 36 as our starting point. All right, the first thing we do once we've created a new track is we come into our settings and go to our input settings. And in the input settings, we're really looking, first of all, to make sure that this high-pass filter is turned on. Also, just as a side note, make sure the iOS processing is turned off. In some of the older versions of the RODERec app, it was turned on, and that was a problem. Anyway, this high-pass filter will help us kind of get us one step towards eliminating the noise from the preamp in your iOS device, your iPhone or whatever. And what that does is it cuts off or reduces any noise or low-frequency hum below 100 hertz. Now, that's not going to do the whole job, but it'll get us partway there. Then we go back out into our effects settings, and we make sure that the dynamics are enabled. We'll go ahead and ignore the compression settings and come down to these expansion threshold and expansion ratio settings. Now, you can notice here that the default setting for expansion threshold is minus 36 dB. Magic. It's just like what we saw in our noise sample when we were looking at it in Audacity. Now, that's a great place to start if you don't have the ability to test that. You don't have Audacity or Audition or whatever. You can just go ahead and leave it at minus 36 and just sort of play with it. And then I like to bring this expansion ratio down to about 1 to 2.5, somewhere in that area. And what that does for us is that kind of tells the expander how much to reduce the noise that it does find below minus 36 dB. And if you go too high on that, you'll start to sound a little bit robotic, because it'll be really aggressive. As soon as you stop talking, it'll go to absolute silence if you go too high. And that doesn't sound very good or very natural. So usually somewhere in the 1 to 2.5 range will work pretty well. I hope you found that helpful. If you've got any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. We'll be glad to get in touch with you and see what we can do to help you solve any problems. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that. We'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video.